Good morning, Elaine.
Good morning, Dana. It's another beautiful, actually nice sunny, well, almost sunny day here in Rothsay.
Yeah.
And we have a fabulous guest here today.
Yes.
I'm quite excited to introduce her.
Yes, let's get to it.
So Cathy Simpson has been deeply involved in the tech industry in Atlantic Canada for over the last 29 years. She started her career at NBTEL, so if any old St. Johners are around, they'll know what NBTEL is, and Innovation, and was co-founder of Propel. She is currently chair of the New Brunswick Innovation Foundation, CEO of Tech Impact, and founder of the social innovation startup Up and Go. So Cathy Simpson, welcome to Soul Sister Conversations.
Thank you for having me.
I'm quite excited that you're here and how you got to be here.
Yeah, it's an interesting storyline.
It is. So recently I was in Fredericton supporting my good friend Crystal Seeberger, who was in your breakthrough competition. Mm-hmm. So she was in the top 5, and I happened to get into the inner sanctum room.
Was this the VIP backstage?
It was
yes, the prep. It's the drink beforehand.
It's
just
the,
calm
right,
everybody down.
Before they get up on the stage and did their pitch.
Wow.
I mean, in a room full of how many people, Cathy?
About 400.
400 people who are heavily invested and interested in what is happening in the province.
And some who want to invest in the people who are pitching that night.
Right.
That's amazing. So does that happen?
Yes, it does happen.
So people see them
and they go,
like a Dragon's Den, and they see these pitches and go, hey,
sure.
I like this idea.
They might be an angel investor who says, geez, I like what I saw there. I'm going to make sure I stay in touch with that person. Or I'd like to have I'd like to have a presentation. So that's real.
Another reason to love New Brunswick.
Yes.
I mean, it is. So you were in the room because you were the president,
the chair
of the board, and so you came over and said, "Hey."
Yes, I did.
You have this podcast.
Yes, I learned about your podcast and said, "Good on you."
Yes.
And next thing you know, I'm here.
And here you are.
So Elaine sends me a message and she goes, "Yeah, she'd like to be on the podcast." I'm like, "Sure."
We'd love
to
have Cathy
why did you want to be on the podcast?
Well, I started this mission about 4 years ago where I realized that we don't have enough women and girls engaged in leadership and in STEM, which stands for science, technology, engineering, and math, and entrepreneurship. Right. And so I thought, here's 2 women who have started a podcast about interesting topics. This is one that we need to create a bigger movement around in the province. And so one thing led to another, and
here you are.
Elaine started chatting, and here we are.
And thank you for explaining what STEM means, because I'm going to plead ignorance on this. In the last year, I've probably heard the word STEM. People talk about STEM. I've been in meetings and I've seen it, and I was like, I have no idea what that is. And I didn't ask, right? And because of that, how is it that I don't know what that is?
You'll feel vulnerable.
I'll feel vulnerable,
asking,
right? And then when you got up at the NBIF event and you said STEM, and then you said what it was, I'm like, well, that makes sense. So how many people are listening right now that have heard STEM and didn't know what it was?
There'd be a lot. And it's certainly in the last 2 or 3 years, there's been an absolute growing movement at realizing there are so many jobs in the digital economy, and we are underrepresented in women, but in a whole, we don't have enough people graduating from college and university programs, men and women.
From what kind of programs?
Science, technology, engineering, and math.
So there's a huge gap.
There's a huge gap.
And is this overall, or are you talking specifically in New Brunswick?
Overall. Across the
even,
country.
even in males, you don't have enough people graduating from engineering.
There just
and
aren't enough
programs.
people.
There's just not enough people going into these programs. But women are significantly underrepresented.
So tell me, why do you think that is? Because women just do not feed into those programs. Is it because of lack of interest? We haven't been exposed to it? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's hard to imagine this, but it starts right at elementary school and middle school. And girls and boys are wired differently.
Wired or taught differently?
Both. Both.
So let's talk about let's talk about how they're taught. Like what are they being told?
Well, girls have more such a pretty girl, such a nice girl. That's real. It still exists today. And so you find boys are climbing the monkey bars, falling down, get right back up there and go again. Why? And girls aren't.
They're taught resilience.
They're not taught that same vulnerability.
Don't be the rough and
vulnerability.
tumble.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And girls don't want to fail like boys do.
Why
So
is that?
It's
Why
it's
is
in
that?
our DNA.
I know. Do you
It's
think
in
because
our
it feels
DNA.
like it is?
Yeah.
Because I see this as a confidence issue with girls. I even think of myself as a.
Well, think about the women we know around
and
us.
people that know, but I remember thinking I wasn't very good at math. Even though I was a very good student, math was just one of the lower marks. It wasn't 100, but it wasn't. It probably was above 80. Like, but I thought I wasn't as good, and I just feels like that is something that is like stuck on women. Would you agree?
Yeah, you gravitate towards things that you think you're good at,
Yeah, for sure.
and not towards things that you think you're going to fail at.
Right.
So
Make you feel
you're
dumb
you're less willing to try new things. So what happens is by the time girls start to hit grade 6, grade 7, grade 8, it's not cool to be off doing things on your own without your girl group,
With your peer group.
Without
their
tribe.
tribe, without
Yes.
their peer group. And it's also, STEM still has that view of it's geeky, and
Right.
it's Sheldon Cooper from The Big Bang Theory. And think about the other scientists on that show, Amy,
Right. Love that show.
love that show.
But Amy
But
is not, she's very unassuming.
And she plays quite a typical
yes.
a stereotype of
Scientist,
a
yeah.
scientist. And so girls see that. So what I have found is it's not even in middle school and high school. You can't be what you can't see. We've all heard
Yes.
that so many times. You can't be what you don't even know to exist.
Exactly. It's awareness, right? You have to see it.
Yeah, so parents don't, if you don't come from an engineering or science or a tech background, parents don't know it. And it's intimidating for a parent to go into a school and say,
100%.
I don't know what to do here. What are the good job opportunities? So what happens in cases is if Elaine, you're really good at math, you should be an accountant, a math teacher, a math professor, someone in finance. Maybe you're interested in stocks, where I would say, well, you could be a data architect, or you could be a data
Right.
scientist.
That's
There's
so
many
true.
different
Interesting that you say
careers.
that, because I was great at math, and my mother said, how about you go to university and take accounting? And neither of my parents went to university. And mom was an accountant in banking, but not through the university route. And so I did, and I took accounting, and I failed at accounting because my brain wasn't wired that way. But what I love is research. So if I had known back then, my university trajectory would have been much different. So now, as an entrepreneur, I love seeing patterns.
Yeah.
And so math is patterns.
Data is patterns.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so my brain is more data patterns than accounting math. And so, and that's always been but because I didn't have that guidance as a young woman, then it took me a while to get to the entrepreneur route, which is where I get to use that.
So you have that scenario that's real and happening. And the
Yes.
other scenario is if a girl, lots of schools have coding clubs and they have robotic clubs.
Yes.
Like these things do exist. It's not like there's a
Yeah.
complete void in the market. But if I'm walking by and I'm in grade 7 and I look in and 80% of the people in the room are boys, I'm probably going to turn around and not go in that room.
It's intimidating.
It's intimidating and it doesn't feel comfortable, and I want my, as you said, Elaine, tribe.
Your peers.
So
yes.
I've tried to take a different approach. I've tried to talk about this problem through Up and Go as we need to get girls in the room. And I promise when you get in the room, you're going to see some really cool things about what it would mean to be an entrepreneur, or what it would mean to be a leader, and how you can be
what
more
that looks
engaged.
like.
But we have to get them in
Into
the room.
Yes.
And then once they're in the room, I promise you, we're going to have greater success.
So is this the mission of Up and Go, is to get women in the room, like to literally not walk by when you see all the boys in
Absolutely.
there geeking out
Yeah.
to walk in.
So about 5 years ago, I did a course called Courage to Act
Yes.
with
Kathleen
Kathleen
Howard.
And
Yeah.
Marcia
Really good.
Dorfman, was Marcia there?
No,
That was post
no,
Marcia.
Yeah, post
Yes.
Marcia. And Kathleen's been a friend for many years. And in that process, you know, you're going through your own self-discovery. And in that process, by the end of it's about 6 months, you know, seminars here
Yes,
and there.
yes.
I went, what do I want to do? And I figured out then I want to be a teacher of the things that inspire me. So what inspired me was getting more girls into leadership. What inspired me was I don't want girls to feel confident when they're 45 like me. You know, at the time, I
Yes.
want them to feel it when they're 16.
Right.
So they'll take more steps. So as I kept exploring that, I realized I wanted to work with more younger women, and then it ended up, well, I really want to work with high school girls. And I was like, why do I feel this void? Like I couldn't figure it out for myself. And then I went, well, I've been in the tech industry for 29 years. There's a lot of men. And I was a vice president. My last job before I made this transition was with T4G Limited.
Right.
And I've had a fantastic career at NBTEL, as Elaine mentioned, and at T4G. Amazing, amazing mentors. But, you know, 90% of them were men.
We're men, right?
And when I did this women's leadership course, I was with all these women, and I'm like, where have you been all my
Yes.
life? Like, the last kind of decade, the more I had more responsibilities in the jobs that I was in and chairing a board, I'm like, oh my goodness, there's such a void of
There's
women.
less women at that level.
So there's two things that are happening and why I'm so passionate about it.
Yes.
We need to get more women in. So the funnel needs to be bigger, and that starts at getting girls into university, into these programs,
Right.
or into college, into these programs.
Right.
The next thing is we start to lose women out of the programs because it is still a gap of how overwhelming the amount of men are in the programs than women. So that's another challenge. Then when they start work, we lose more women than we lose men because they're walking into environments where, you know, a tech company in New Brunswick, I would love to say it's 50-50, but it's not yet. And I can certainly tell you that some of the really up and coming startup companies, they have that as a real social mission to get more men and women,
right?
more diversity,
diversity.
you know,
yeah.
bringing more immigrants, so it's
Yeah.
diversity overall. So if you think about the path to being in the C-suite, to being a vice president, if we're losing
As you rise.
as we rise, then that's why, you know, less
we
than
just
10%.
need a bigger funnel. This is a numbers game.
This is a numbers game.
Yeah.
And so my mission has been, how do I get them in the room? And so I don't lead with, you need to come take part in this 7-week program to learn all about STEM. I don't
Like
lead.
create another course.
Yeah, it's not that. It's I want you to come. I want you to be inspired by other women who work in STEM and in entrepreneurship and in leadership, but I want to help develop your inner resume skills. So we're going to work on confidence.
And when you say you,
failure.
are you talking younger children, like are all women ages?
My focus to date has been on high school girls.
High school
I've
girls.
done one middle school
Okay.
program,
Okay.
but I just finished a group of 24 girls in Florenceville, New Brunswick, and they were all in grade 10 except for one. And so a night with me for 7 weeks, 2 hours once a week is we have a speaker that usually comes in. We do one-on-one exercises. We create an opportunity for girls to talk about bravery, talk about body confidence, talk about self-doubt, talk about I'm enough just like
Right.
I am.
As I am.
We do exercises like failure resumes, and we, you know, sit down
Well,
and say,
I think I need to know about that.
Failure resumes.
failure resumes. Like, so think about what's something that you like really shit the bed in, right?
Mhm.
Where did you really go, oh, did I ever miss that opportunity and I really didn't prepare and I messed that up? And we write that all out. And then we go, okay, what did we learn from that? So that you turn it into a really cool, positive, well, if I didn't do that, I wouldn't know how
Right.
to
It
step
was a stepping
forward.
stone. Fail
Yeah.
forward.
So it's
Exactly.
reframing failure.
Yeah.
And I think as women, and we talked about this in one of our episodes, right? Things happen for you, not to you. And when we look at life that way, right? There's always that, okay, if this hadn't happened, then I wouldn't have gone here.
Right.
I wouldn't have met that person. I wouldn't have had that opportunity to grow. But that isn't instilled in girls. So is that back to that point you made earlier that, there's that the things that are happening in the classroom, but then there's the innate thing in women that we are afraid of failure or avoid failure.
Yeah, even Elaine, when I started this journey, I went on a girls' leadership course that was held in Stanford down in California. And I was with high school teachers, guidance counselors, psychologists, and I was the only business person in the room. And I said, well, I really want to learn about being more engaged with young high school girls because of the career path that I chose is so void of women. It was totally intimidating because these are women who work with high school girls all the time and have psychology degrees or guidance degrees, a whole different
So you're
path.
comparing yourself to them.
Yeah, so I'm
and
like...
here you are, at the age you are, with everything that you know,
feeling
and
like...
feel like you're
Still
doing it
feeling
again.
like
I
yes.
don't belong. Imposter syndrome
don't
was just
belong.
Imposter syndrome.
happening, right? For 3 full days. Holy crap, how am I going to
Thank
be
you
able
for
to
being
do
human
those
and saying that,
role
because I
models,
think
right?
that's what people realize. Well, we all feel that, and I would say that's true of men too. I think people. This is
believe
not
so,
just
too.
women. I just think we don't talk about it
Yeah,
as much,
I think you're right.
and for some reason we have the stigma, and it becomes this confidence issue. So when the work that you were doing in Florenceville with these girls, what did you see happen at the end of 7 weeks? What were the changes?
Well, the biggest, I would say 2 biggest things for me, because I've done about 6 of these now in the last 2 years. The first thing that I notice is they go, oh, Elaine, you feel the same way that I do.
You're not alone.
I'm not alone. I go, I had no idea you thought that. Because they think it's just them.
Everybody does.
Yeah, so it's trying to get them to flip that switch. So when we do all this work together, I grab all the notes, I type it all up, they have books, I give it all back to them, and then they go, oh, I had no idea that I was not the only one who felt like that. So that is a game changer.
Yes.
The second piece for me is I position these women that I bring in and I say they're ordinary New Brunswickers who are doing extraordinary things because they can. They have chosen to create that opportunity for themselves.
For themselves, okay.
And so one of my favorite this last term was I brought in a young woman. Her name is Catherine Chamberlain. She's with Beauceron Security. She's the COO, 24 years old, has her business degree, and is working in cybersecurity. And she's fantastic. So she came up and she's talking about her path and what she took at school. And I didn't even take computer science, but I'm good at tech, but I didn't take computer science. So I didn't really feel like I didn't fit in. And as she's going along, she goes, okay, now let me tell you about cybersecurity. And I stopped her and I said, Catherine, nobody in this room knows what cybersecurity is, right? So she had to start with, well, let me explain what cybersecurity is.
Yes.
So that night they left seeing a 24-year-old girl who's an incredible woman, right? But she looks like them, right?
So young.
So she's young and they can relate to her. Yes. And then they learned, well, I didn't even know what cybersecurity was. And I can work in tech and I don't even necessarily have to have a computer science or engineering
because
or
you think
mathematics
you need to
degree.
have those courses to get into the STEM programs.
So on nights like that, I get in my car to drive back to Rosse and I go, well, that was pretty darn good. Yeah. You know, something has happened as a result of that.
Something is shifted within those girls.
I said 2 things. Third thing, I bet you're an Amy Poehler fan. I have a feeling.
I know who. Oh yeah, it's Saturday Night Live.
Yes.
I was thinking, is she the email lady? No, she's Saturday Night.
Well, she was on the show Parks and Recreation.
Yes.
And she started this thing called Galentines Day. Have you heard of that?
Yes.
Yeah.
I know that term.
Well, you did that on it's on your Up and Go.
Yeah,
website.
February 13th is Galentine's Day. It's this day to celebrate girls' friendships, women friendships. Okay.
Great idea.
And so she has this whole shtick about it. So I said, there's something about that. So I started Galentines in my program. And I've used it at a women's event too. And it's these little notes that are handwritten that talk about, geez, you did a really great job, Dana. I'm so glad that you shared that story because I'm feeling that too, and they give it to the girl in the room. So we have Galentines going, and it's taking that minute to say, you rock,
Acknowledge
Elaine.
them.
Look what you've done. You've created this podcast.
How great does that feel?
But
Yeah.
it is life-changing for a girl who's in high school, who's feeling like, oh man, how do I go to school today and just survive sometimes and be myself?
That hits me right here.
Right?
Because I think as women we don't, and as girls if we learn this, and then as women if we're standing in the grocery store and we see somebody with great glasses or great hair and we say, wow, you look fabulous today.
Yeah.
It changes
it's
them.
life-changing. Well, and we had the Girls STEM Up conference in Fredericton the end of March. 9 UMB students in STEM decided they wanted to have a conference for girls. So it was high school girls and university girls. And everyone who they asked volunteered. So I got to speak at it about Up and Go, and I had a booth. You know, we did all the stuff you do at
Yes.
a trade show.
Yeah.
And there was about 40 guys that came from university and colleges and high school. And so I said to the people who came to my session, I want to do Galentines. Can we do that? And I got my first Galentine from a guy.
Oh.
You know, like
So
he
you-
let
she
me
actually
know.
has it in
I have
studio.
it. Yeah,
We have it here.
this guy's name is Adam. I had an awesome time listening to your presentation today. Very motivating, and I hope to apply your outside the box thinking in my own field of study, accounting. Thanks. And, you know, at the end of the day, he walked up and he said, Cathy, I wanted to give you this.
How nice.
You had a nice impact on
What
me.
a nice acknowledgement.
Yeah, but these little things, so that's the third part. It's just about celebrating and talking about positivity. So while I talk about STEM and careers in that space, I've got to get them thinking about you can be successful in this field. We need leaders in this field. We need you coming into the room
Right.
to learn
Come
what the
into
heck
the
it
room.
is.
Yes.
And once you get there, there's an army of women and men who want to support you. This isn't a woman's thing.
Right.
This
It
is
is a human being.
It's a
thing.
human being
Right.
thing.
Because
Yeah.
I was watching
Yeah,
a little
for
piece
sure.
on Facebook, and maybe you've seen it. It's something that's been floating around, and I think she's the head coach of one of the basketball teams. And she said, I'll be glad when we stop saying the first female governor, the first female astronaut, the first female, and it's just going to be this person is holding that
Let's
role or
celebrate this
title,
person.
Yeah.
right? And so that it's going to become the norm that.
But here
that
we
there's
are.
enough females.
It's 2019 and we're still talking about this because we're still talking about it.
Yeah.
It's a thing.
But you know, I don't get discouraged by it. I did before, but I'm not discouraged by it
Well,
at
you're
all.
seeing it, right? You are seeing in the front lines. You are on the front lines
Well,
and making a
I
difference.
know the people who want to be engaged to make change happen. I know there are amazing men in this community who want to do that, and women. And there's some work that us women need to do to help elevate other women.
So expand on that.
Yeah,
that I want to hear
do
about.
tell.
You know, I had a third year engineering student from Nova Scotia at the Girls STEM Up conference say, you know what, I don't understand this, but my hardest bosses for co-op programs have been women. And I don't understand why they're so hard. It's easier to work for men. And I said, well, geez, that's a tough question. I said, a couple things come to mind. One, when I would have been earlier on in my career, I knew there were only going to be so many women leaders around the table. So I was fighting against you and against you. Like I
Right.
knew I
Like
was.
competition.
There was more competition.
Right.
So some of us gray-haired ladies have that background of what it was like in the mid-90s, and
So everybody was fighting to.
there was fewer seats at the table.
Right.
I think that is changing. The other part is I think women have incredible standards for other women. And we expect other women.
Like too high?
If you're at the table, Elaine, you better not screw up.
Right.
You know,
You're
you're
representing the whole
You're going to make us all
represent-
look bad.
Yeah, there's some realness to that.
Yes.
So you have a great university co-op engineering student going, oh my gosh, I can't screw this up. And I'm like, well,
You're representing the entire gender.
but I want them to screw up so that they can realize it's part of everyday life.
Failure is, I think, when I look back, the failures that I've had, and I've had some good ones, have been the best things that have ever happened to me. I brush myself off and I get back up.
Yeah.
But I was taught that, right? Mom would say, get up. I mean, my mother was a career woman, and she's like, brush yourself off and get up.
It's discouraging to know that girls are at their peak in confidence in like grades 5 and 6.
Gosh.
And it goes down. And they start to rebound.
I'm in shock.
I'm sorry.
I'm in shock.
Yeah,
But I see it. I've seen
their
it in
peak.
girls. You know, my daughter. I see all the friends. I'm watching these patterns now, and it is obvious. There's a confidence factor, and I'm racking my head. Like, I'm thinking, I'm a coach. I know how to bring out the best in you, but I'm always a parent. I'm not the coach with my children. But I'm thinking, I'm an aware person. I want to raise a strong daughter and influence her friends. And I still see it. I'm like, wow, I'm not that powerful to be able to do that. So I want to know, what can we do to help women build their confidence and get rid of this idea of perfectionism? And be willing to fail. Like, do you have any advice on that based on all the girls that you're seeing?
You should have up and go programs for girls
Yes.
throughout, everywhere. I mean, that's
you
that's
have
what
a
I'm
leader
trying
in
to
me.
do.
I'm like
Yeah.
raising my hand.
But you know what, Dana, what I decided last year was I wanted to do more and more of this. And I still wanted to be completely engaged in the tech community because I've spent 29 wonderful years. And I'm thinking, well, I'm 50. I'm probably going to work another decade. I've got an 11-year-old,
Right.
In my mix. What do I want to do for the next 10 years to try and work on some of these problems? So I'm working at Tech Impact as the CEO, which is the largest kind of tech, the organization, it's a not-for-profit, of the largest tech companies in Nova Scotia and New Brunswick, more in New Brunswick. We're growing in Nova Scotia. And we're trying to work on workforce development. We're trying to drive more innovation. We're trying to get more investment happening in the industry. So I get to work on that.
You have control
Yes.
now. You're in a position to help move that whole
Move that
agenda
forward and work
Right.
with my members, which
Yes.
are companies like JDI and McCain's and
Okay.
T4G and Mariner Partners and Deloitte and EY, and many more, Bulletproof, the list goes on. So I get to really think about how are we getting more programming happening in various phases of the STEM area. And then it's, okay, but I want to be filling that funnel. So I left a vice president job with a tech company. I have my own company. I'm doing that. And it's my way of trying to give back. How do we get more women realizing this? We have to create forums for it to happen. So when I started, I thought, well, I'm going to have an event and I'm going to bring some women in. Geez, I hope some people will show up.
Yes.
And you don't know, right? You really don't
Yeah,
know.
I've been there. Yes, you don't
It's
know.
New Brunswick, you don't know.
You don't know. And then, 35 people show up and I go,
Wow.
okay.
That's a good
We
number.
touched a chord on that.
Right.
Yeah.
We had another event we did in partnership with Dalhousie Med School in St. John. We had 90 kids come.
Wow.
And it was on the day to celebrate women and girls in science. We had 3 doctors from St. John. And then we had the first year med students. They set up stations throughout the building. And I might come to you and you did my blood pressure. I might come to you and you let me listen to my heart and I learned. I might come to another station and they talked about what's it like to go to med school. Tell me
Right.
about it. How did you
Right.
get here? All of this. And parents stay.
Right.
Girl Guides groups came.
Yeah.
PAL's program in St. John bought a bus with kids. And you go, oh, okay. This is how you create awareness.
Right.
This is how you start to engage. And I've never had a woman or a man who I've asked to help participate say no.
Right.
Because they want,
It's important.
and they want to give back and they want to participate. But I believe you have to work on the person first and then create the opportunity for them to go. It's still scary to say, oh, it's an event for girls. And then it becomes, oh, my mother's making me come. Like, yeah, I hear that all the time.
Yes.
You know, my
Yes.
mom signed me up for this course, and I'm like,
Right.
okay, well, let's see if you'll come back for night
Yes,
2.
right.
You know, that's the goal. I know your mom signed you
Right.
up, but let's
But
see.
we want you to have that internal motivation,
Desire.
right,
Yeah,
to go.
that's right.
So you're saying that you said that people should do up and go or sign on to do. So
Yes.
how can people help you with your mission, or people can create up and go events?
Yes. Well, if anyone is interested in doing some events, they can contact me. So I've been doing this for a couple of years. Now I want to scale. You know, in the
Right.
startup
Sure.
world, I'm ready to scale.
For you, yes.
So I have started to pitch to both private sector and the government to do a high school internship program for girls. So it's working on that inner resume of skills. It's getting more hands-on skills from organizations that already exist. It's having a mentor that meets with you 4 times a year. It's visiting Dow Med School, going to Innovatia, another
Yes,
Tech Impact
right.
member, and seeing what's it like to be a
And
developer.
because of your other
and
role,
innovation.
you have touch points with these companies
Right.
that can help
Yeah.
get these, the girls through the up and
to
go.
create these
Right.
opportunities. So I'm saying, if we want to take the funnel and build
Yes.
it,
Build it, yeah.
it's not naturally happening on its own fast enough.
Fast enough. We have
To
to have
fill
more
the
We
people.
jobs.
have to do
Right.
something differently.
We
So
need you need partners and people to help you
Right.
get the girls and be out there talking about it
that's right.
and creating the events.
That's right. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm working on now. So how can I get a high school girls internship program started in the fall that enables that? And they
Yeah.
work on both some of the technical things,
Yes.
but they work more on
Who they?
being a part of an experience. So when they think, do I want to apply to electrical engineering at UMB, or do I want to apply to programming at NBCC or CCMB, they go, oh yeah, I visited this company and this
Yeah.
company.
Yes.
That was really cool.
That was cool. That's exactly.
Oh, I'm
what-
thinking about that. I should call.
We need to see the reality of the job, because even what you're talking about, I think about career fairs years ago. I remember grade 9 was the year
Yes,
you went, right?
Totally
And
was.
you could shop for careers of what you'd want to be. And I just don't know if there's enough. Like, there's new jobs being created all the time. The kids don't even know, but it's not the standard doctor, lawyer, undertaker you would see at the
Teacher.
career fair.
Yes.
What are the cool jobs? I don't even know myself. I think our kids need to know what's the options out there and what's the reality of those jobs, and they can be excited about doing things in tech.
We had a woman in Woodstock who's a family doctor, and she just had a baby. Baby was like not even a year old, and she came in, and I brought her in the night about body confidence. And she came in and she talked about her body, and she has challenges with her body, and her body's done all these crazy things. It's had a baby, and
It's miraculous, is what
it's
it
a
is.
miracle.
so
Yeah.
she's talking about this to these high school girls. And she said this profound statement that I'll never forget. When we all have our body issues, even as grown women,
Yeah.
she said, I think of my body now as this amazing thing. It's a vessel that gave life to somebody. But I think of it as my body allows me to do mouth-to-mouth resuscitation when someone is dying. And I can do things with my body that I didn't even imagine. And can you imagine the impact that has on a grade 10 girl who's thinking about, I weigh too much.
Right.
I don't like the color of my hair.
Mm.
It's trying to reframe their
Yes,
And
thinking.
our body is something that to be celebrated, not I'm rejecting all these little
Right.
bits.
Yeah,
So
so
you reject yourself, you reject life, right?
Yeah.
Because really, what you're doing is I think that when we're talking about this confidence, people are afraid to put themselves out there. They're worried how they look, if they're going to fail. Everything comes into play. And what I hear you talking about a lot today is shifting the mindset.
That's
we
right,
have to
yes.
create this reframing, to celebrating, to not away
Awareness.
from a perfectionism. It's all of
Yeah.
that, to this positive messaging.
if you look at books for elementary school kids, when they say, what is confidence? They go, thoughts plus actions equals confidence. So you're trying to mix, like this scientific potion
Yeah.
of you think about my body's enabling me to save another person's life, right?
Yeah.
You start to do that, plus then you learn how to do that you're a superwoman,
it's
right? Like
dynamo.
you have that ability. So the whole time that I'm thinking about it now, when I'm mentoring young women at work and young girls, whatever ages, I think, how do I get more positive thoughts in
Absolutely.
so that they'll come to the room, which is their action,
That's true.
Yes.
and then they'll sit in this chair and they'll go, oh, I belong here.
Yeah,
I can see
absolutely.
myself doing this. It's that simple thoughts and actions. But if you're afraid to fail, you're not going to maybe take calculus because you might get a 70 instead of
a 90.
Instead of a 90.
Right.
And a 70 isn't a bad mark.
Yeah, that's the
Gets you around the table.
that's the constant reframing of
When I
what
went
it's
to
about.
my son's, he's in mechanical engineering at UNB, and we went to the orientation. And so one of the professors were there, and I remember him making the statement. He goes, "Remember, we're not chasing marks; we're chasing knowledge." And so get this idea. He goes, if you made 90s in high school, you're likely going to make 70s in university.
Right.
And I think we have to dissipate the idea that marks is some sort of measure of value of who we are. This is just showing you what you know right now and where you're having some struggles. And I think it's, that's what we have to do. We have to change this, shift this thinking of perfectionism.
Well, if you look at Up and Go, the brand was
Yes.
think of that steep climb up to the point, like
Yes.
this is like a mountain.
We'll show this on the Facebook page.
Yeah,
The
this is
logo
like
for Up
this
and
is
Go.
like a mountain. So you're going up the mountain and you go, oh,
You go back
shoot,
down.
something happened. That didn't quite work out. You go back down again, but you have to get up and go for it again. You got to get right back up and get going again. And you can see the tag that I've got in the company. Be brave, be you. It's not come learn about STEM.
Right.
You know, it's
show up.
It's show up. It's but
Yeah.
the hardest thing for us to do is to be ourselves.
Right.
And it takes a lot of bravery. So I'm trying to think about what is the type of programming so that we can get more girls doing that. And if they want to be teachers or writers or
Fine
business
too.
people, that's awesome too. For the next little while, I'm going to be trying to do a little bit more into
You're going to have a different slant.
a little bit more, but you can have a business degree. I'm 29 years with a business degree from Acadia, and I've worked in
all
the
sorts
tech
of
industry
things. That's exactly
my
right.
entire career.
And stop seeing things as obstacles. You don't have the right degree, the right this, the right that. That
Right.
you can move beyond. Don't put boundaries up. People argue for their limitations.
Yeah.
We have to stop arguing for our limitations.
Yeah.
Start arguing for our potential.
And there's so many jobs. They're great paying jobs.
Yes.
So you
Super
can be a business student, you can be an art student, and you might be a product manager, you might be a business analyst, you could be a finance person, you could be in customer service and work for a great tech company. What are you kidding me? You could be a trainer.
Right.
So there's a lot that we need to do for awareness, and I'm
I
just
feel
trying
inspired.
to do my part.
How about
And
you,
that's
Elaine?
all.
I feel
I'm
inspired.
inspired. I'm
Trying
inspired.
to do my part.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yes. Is there
Appreciate
anything
it.
else you want to add? Anything we need to know?
No, if you want to support the high school girls internship program,
I
find
think it's
me.
a fantastic program.
And do you have a Facebook page, Up and Go?
I do.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
like the Facebook page.
We'll have Cathy's information on there.
Yeah,
So
that'd be great.
and be interested. Get the girls around you interested. And if you see anything happening, right, lobbying, putting information and sharing Cathy's stuff would be fabulous for our
would be so
listeners.
helpful.
Yeah.
I
So, and
appreciate
not
it.
just here in New Brunswick where we are, right? Because if you're looking at scaling this, this is a global program.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Even better.
Right.
Okay, thanks, Cathy.
Well, thanks for coming
Thank
in.
you.
I think I'm going to end with this with your logo and your saying. It says, "Be brave, be you," and thank you for being both of those today.
My pleasure.